I love my students as much as I love my children. Difficult thing to say, but they're part of my life. And I want to thank them for working together with me to become who they are.
Rav Avram Rockmill spent more than 50 years giving of himself in this institution, Or Sameach. He was a mentor, special person in his community, with his friends, with family, with people that needed help everywhere. That's the type of person he was. He was a serious person, a strong person. He was a throwback to a time where we don't have that kind of people anymore. He was real. He was real in a way that you don't see that type of realness. He wasn't afraid to say you made a mistake, but at the same time, he wasn't too busy to be there to help you figure out how to solve that mistake, how to fix it. Very special person. So I want to just share one story from our interaction when I worked for him. I think it's a beautiful story, an important lesson which I live with and repeat many times to other people. So now you'll hear it and hopefully it'll spread in his name. This is what Rav Avram Rockmill taught me. So I was new teaching in the program, and Rabbi Rockmill gave me an unbelievable lesson when I was starting out to make sure that I didn't get confused what I'm there for. I didn't get confused what the essence is it all about. What's it all about? What am I there for? Am I there to give a nice idea over? Or am I there to help that student that needs help, that wants a connection, that wants to solve his problems? What am I there for? Is it to give over a piece of Torah only, or is there something more to it? And he said like this. He said, Yitzchak, I'll tell you. You're going to come and you want to give over a piece of Torah, you want to give over a nice vort. And you know, that's important. But years from now, what your students are going to remember is not necessarily the idea you told them. What they'll remember is one thing, which is more important, is did you care about them? If they felt that you cared about them and they mattered to you, then you'll make the impression you need to make. Then it'll work. If it's just an idea you're trying to pass over to them, then they'll understand that and it's not going to work. That's essentially what he told me. That it's about letting them know, and of course it must be genuine, that you care about them. Whether it's a program with people that are recovering from issues because of foolish teachers that they had to go through before they got to us, or whether it's a program for the elite. It's not just about passing over information. That's what he taught me. Now I'd like to add to what he said, not that it needs any addition. He knew that this was the emes and the truth because he lived it. You know, the Torah that we learn is not an idea to learn, it's an idea to live, and he lived it. He learned from experience that that's what's the most important thing, and he didn't need a proof, and he didn't need to go and find a great rabbi that said so, because he knew it from life, from his own nisayon. And I agree, I'm not arguing, but I would like to share a place in the Torah where we could find the same idea, because I think it's going to add so much appreciation and so much beauty and power to what he said, because nothing speaks stronger and more powerful and more loud than the whispers of Hashem that you can hear through the Torah. So let's listen up. When Hashem decided it's time to write the third book of the Torah, the book of Vayikra, which means that God called to Moshe, when Moshe was comprehended that God wanted him to write Vayikra, the word Vayikra, he said he wanted to voice his opinion, and his opinion was that he preferred not to write Vayikra. Essentially, he was trying to negotiate with Hashem. We'll give it a very soft term. You could call it argue, you could call it being difficult, you could call it negotiate. He was saying, Hashem, I would rather not write the word Vayikra because Vayikra is a very special word. Now I'll introduce to you what Vayikra means if you haven't seen it yet. Rashi helps us and tells us. Vayikra simply means you matter, you're important, and I care about you. And that's a unique term that the angels use, because the angels in that heavenly realm where everything is so beautiful and so clear, there's an intrinsic value that each angel has for the other, and an affection to the other. And so the angels use this word Vayikra, and Hashem wanted Moshe to use the same word Vayikra because it implies that Moshe was important. Moshe mattered. Moshe was loved and cared for by Hashem. In every dialogue, that was always present. But Moshe, being humble, does not want the Torah to publicize how special he was. He was, after all, the humblest of all people. And he said, I'd rather just write the word Vayikar without the Aleph. Vayikar means from the word Mikra. It just happened. It just happened that Hashem happened to be by me and gave me over some information. He wanted the more simple term that did not imply all this greatness, all this appreciation from Hashem to Moshe, all this love and affection that's there. So Hashem, if I'm permitted to come into this conversation, I would like to explain the way I feel the conversation went. Hashem heard Moshe's complaint and said, I take note of your suggestion, and therefore I'm going to tell you, write the Aleph of the word Vayikra smaller. Smaller. You could say that represents Moshe's humility. But what in fact does that Aleph, that smaller, do in this story? It's a beautiful ending to the story. I'll ask you a question. Who wins in an argument? If you're arguing with Hashem, who's going to win? Moshe kind of argued, and who won that argument? So I'll show you why Hashem won. Because Hashem said, I take note of your wanting to put Vayikar, but I'm telling you, put Vayikra, but as a note of your objection, we'll put a small Aleph there. And what happens? Every child that comes to learn the Torah, when he gets up to this third book, Vayikra, and reads that word, he sees a very cute baby Aleph. I'm sure for a 5-year-old, it's cute and very wow, what's that? And he's going to ask his mommy, his daddy, his teacher, what's that small Aleph doing there? And he'll be told that small Aleph is there because Moshe was so humble that he did not want to write the word Vayikra, but Vayikar, and therefore there's a small Aleph. So what happened? In the place that Moshe's humility caused him to want to take away the Aleph, Hashem puts a small Aleph, and that is exactly the place that everybody learns how humble he was and how great he truly was. And so who won that argument? Moshe or Hashem? Hashem won it, because the place where he wanted to hide his greatness is where we learn about his greatness. Okay, but I want to go deeper than that. That is a cute way to solve that issue, but I want to go a bit deeper and ask this. Why was it so important? Why was it in fact so important for Hashem that there be the word Vayikra there and not Vayikar? What's the big difference? Let him agree to Moshe for the sake of humility. So here's where I think Hashem tells him like this. It's important, humility. You're right. Humility is important, and your humility is most of all important because you're the giver of the Torah, and that has to be with humility. But there's something right now that's more important, and even your humility. It's more important that the world out there knows that you matter to me, that you were important. I didn't just give you information. I gave you information, but I cared about you. And you had intrinsic value to me. You weren't just a mailman handing over my words, my wisdom. You were like a child to me. And they have to know that. The world has to know that. For two reasons. Number one, when Moshe understands that how important it is, he understands that when he goes to teach God's Torah to Hashem's people, to the children, the Bnei Israel, that they have to matter to him as well. Because it's not just information that we're passing over. So Moshe Rabbeinu then will teach Bnei Israel, and he'll care about them, and they'll be important to him. And when they learn it from Moshe, they will teach it to their children and their students, and they'll care about them, and they'll be important to them. And it will be an unbelievable passing over of personal, beautiful information of God's, but that comes with caring and connection, not just the information. And that's the whole foundation of life. Hillel says it in a few words. Don't do unto others what you don't like done to yourself. If I matter, you matter. And more importantly, if you matter to me, then what I have to say to you will matter more. And so it's not just a piece of intellect. It's a piece of me that Hashem was offering Moshe. And so too with Moshe. He was offering a piece of himself to his students and Bnei Israel, and so on and so on. And that was more important than the humility of Moshe. Because without that, we become university professors and students that are just regurgitating and passing over our own information, and we could drop dead tomorrow and nobody would care. And so this is something I think we all need to internalize and live with. It's not just the idea of knowing what's right. It's about, first of all, doing it, living it, but it's also about the idea that we are real people with real feelings, flesh and blood, and we need each other. We need each other. We need to care about each other. Otherwise, we're just all alone in our own bubble world. Nobody wants to be alone. God says from the first day of creation, it's not good for man to be alone. He made him a helper, someone to help him that he can help and that they can matter to and connect with and share this beautiful world that Hashem gave to us in all its wisdom. Share it with love, with connection. And every communication you have with people, there's an intimacy there. And if it's not there, we become robots, just mumbling, jumbling words out of our mouths. There's a connection. We matter to each other. It's personal. And that's how we make this world a better place, by making the people around you better and by making real connections.